Namaste yogis. Today we will move through a nice releasing hip practice, and we will need a bolster, a blanket and 2 blocks or anything that's kind of the same shape. We will start in a child's pose, so feel free to use your bolster for this one. So bring your knees wide, big toes to touch, snuggle your bolster toe with your groin in between the thighs, and if there's quite a big gap in between heels and sitting bones, you can even snuggle a blanket in here. And then we simply start to walk the fingertips forward and relax down. Oh, such a good start for the class. You can straight away close your eyes here and start to soften. Chances are you had a busy day, so use this super nice and relaxed start here to really arrive on the mat, settling in. Take a big inhale, big exhale out through the mouth. And maybe 2 more like this, into the nose, out through the mouth, big sigh. Really feeling yourself slowly softening. Probably still holding tension almost everywhere in your body. See if you can really snuggle your way down into this most comfortable position of yours. And then just start with a body scan. Start at your toes, move along your legs and just detect if there's tension still anywhere in your body, and if you can soften a bit further into this posture. So it's our start for our hip sequence. So it's already nice, really subtle hip stretch here. So moving along the legs and see if you're holding in the hips, and if you can maybe sink a little bit deeper, snuggle your way a bit further down. Feel the nice release in the lower back, in the upper back, around the shoulders. You can even feel your belly slightly pressing into the bolster with every inhale. A nice subtle massage. And then soften through the shoulders a bit further, and the arms and the fingertips. If fingertips forward is a bit strong for your shoulders, you can even bring the elbows a bit wider, if that's nicer for your shoulders, if they're a bit restricted. And then relax all the muscles in your face. Soften through the forehead, the jaw, the tongue. So let everything become super soft. And just start to breathe really nice and deep. Such an awesome posture. So take one more breath here, and then I'd like you to switch the sides of the head here. So just move over to the other side, looking towards the other side. Just so we even out the neck and we're not just putting a little bit of pressure on one side of the neck. Always making sure it's even. And then it's a good time here to maybe set a bit of an intention for today's class. Because we're moving through a hip sequence, we might get face to face with a lot of emotions, a lot of old tensions we might hold in our bodies from previous situations that are still kind of bothering us. Some people even say you're still holding tension from your past lives in your hips sometimes. Who knows? Might be. So there's a lot of stuff that can come up. So maybe your intention today about our releasing theme might just be to be aware of what's coming up and just acknowledge it. So really acting mindful, not judging, just being aware, acknowledging, and then coming back to our beautiful, beautiful tool of the breath. Exhale, let it go, whatever comes up. So we take 3 more big breaths here. Let those last breaths be your biggest breath that you've taken so far today. Feeling this big, big stretch here in the lower back, in the belly, maybe even in the rib cage and the upper back. And last breath. Then from here, we just move super, super slow. Come up. Just bring our bolster out to the side. So we've got some room. Maybe shuffle of the blanket we had before. And start to walk the fingertips forward. Coming into a tabletop. Starting with a couple of our cat-cows, so just an inhale to let the belly drop, and exhale to tuck the tailbone under chin to chest, just a nice little movement here for the spine. Keep pressing into the palms, into the tops of the feet. And then maybe grooving into a bit more of a wiggly cat, bumping the hips left to right, swaying the shoulders, swaying the head. Shaking your head yes or no, whatever feels good here. Big, big stretch. Then we slowly start to groove into our next pose, coming into our winged dragon. So step the left foot forward, and then bring your left hand on the inside of the left foot, and we start to wiggle the left foot further out to the left side. You can even turn the toes a bit further over to the left corner of the mat, or even come onto the outside edge of the foot. So that's another option. It always depends on what feels good in your hip here. And then another option here for the upper body, because there might be quite a bit of space still here between the mat and the chest. So you can come onto your thigh if there's just no way you're going to reach the ground. Or we're going to use our 2 blocks. It's another option here. Putting our blocks underneath. That brings the ears up towards the palms. It's a beautiful one. We can even come onto the flatter version, or of course, option to come onto the hands. If you're quite stretchy, feel free to come onto the forearms if you've got the space, or you can even bring your forearms onto one block. So a couple of options. Take the first couple of breaths to adjust. How stretchy is your hip? How deep can you go? Your choice. You can even bring the bolster under the forearms. It's a nice one too. And make sure you're nice and straight through the right leg. And we claw a bit through the fingertips in case we're still on our palms. If you're on your forearms, you can have the palms open, or you can interlace the fingers here, whatever feels better. Then before we completely soften here, we're going to make sure we're wriggle a little bit around in the jaw and the shoulders so we don't hold too much tension there. Of course, there's a little bit of tension because we have to hold ourselves up. I try to soften that first before we bring our awareness towards the hips. Whew. Soften down through the right hip, opening up through the left hip. Always remember, because this is quite a deep stretch, we want to approach our yin postures with 70% of our maximum stretchiness, basically. So if you're already at 100% at the start of the posture, it can sometimes happen that we overstretch or overstress a muscle or a joint or something, so we have to be really mindful here. Keep breathing, keep softening, especially through shoulders and neck as well. And like I said, that's our first deeper hip stretch here today. It might be that already some kind of thoughts or emotions come up, and that's completely fine. Might be thoughts like, oh my god, why did I start this video here today? Or my hips aren't flexible, what's happening? Why is it so much of a strain in there? It's all good, just keep breathing, keep staying in the moment, so don't let your thoughts carry you away. Sometimes we get caught up in those little circles of the same thoughts over and over again. Just keep breathing. I'm going to stay 5 to 7 more breaths here. Keep softening through the shoulders. Even I have always to remind myself of this. Maybe give yourself a little smile. You're doing great. You made the decision here today to do something for your body. Something awesome. So be proud of yourself. Enjoy the last couple of breaths here on the left side. Big, big exhalation. Let go whatever tension you're holding. And we're taking the last breath here. And then the exhalation, we like super, super slow. Move out of the pose. Wiggle the left foot back and take a moment here before you move into any direction, just to feel into any sensations here in the front of the right hip, in the left hip. So good. And then again, maybe wriggling into one of our groovy cat-cows. Whatever feels good here. Maybe you want to stretch out the legs and sway a little bit back and forth. Or maybe you just wiggle the hips and the shoulders. Feel free to press into a downward facing dog. Whatever fits good here. Sometimes we even like to just circle the knee a little bit, just to give the hips some movement. Whatever is good in your body today. 2 more big breaths wherever you are. And then we slowly groove our way into the other side, stepping the right foot forward, again bringing both hands on the inside of the foot, maybe wriggling the foot a bit further out to the side, turning toes over to the right upper corner of the mat, maybe coming onto the outside edge, whatever feels better in your hip. And then you have to just adjust to your liking. Like for example, the right hip is my more tight hip, so it's very unlikely that I'm going to come onto the forearms on this side, but that's completely fine. So honor the dodginess in your body. I mean, you're the person who knows your body best, so you know how to adjust. Or maybe this is even your more flexible hip, and instead of using the blocks, this time you can just come onto your palms. So whatever feels good here in your body. So come into your 70% of the stretch, of the stressing. Once there, take big inhale, big exhale, and soften through the hips. Release the hips towards the mat. Wiggle your jaw, wiggle your shoulders and neck. And simply observe what's coming up. Any thoughts, any emotions, feelings. Or maybe the only thing that occupies your mind at the moment is this super heavy sensation here in your right hip, or the front of the left hip. So if the sensation becomes like really heavy, bring your breath. Inhale into the spot that basically stresses you the most, and exhale, try to release the tension there. Inhale into it, exhale, release the tension. You can do it, you can hold a bit longer here. So often our mind is already telling us, oh, we have to move, let's get out of this pose, it becomes too strong. But really we're just stretching here, so of course we can overstretch, but if we're mindful, there's nothing really here in this pose that can harm our body. But still, because it's such an intense stretch of the muscles, of the tendons and ligaments, becomes quite intense, and that just tells the body it's not a good position, get out of here. But we just overcome our mind, our body. We're stronger, we know we can stay a little bit longer, just 5 more breaths. Keep softening, keep smiling. Breathe into the tension, exhale, let it go. Big releasing practice today. Slowly approaching the last breath here. And take your time. Use an exhale to get out. Oof, heavy hips. And one breath here just to observe, feeling into the different sensations, feeling into this nice tingling feeling we have when we release out of a yin posture. All this prana, all this energy we create in the body. And then start to move into whatever shape is nice for you. Like I said, you can just bring it around. Maybe you draw circuits with the hips. Maybe you extend the legs for a little bit. Or maybe you press into downward facing dog. Oh, big full body stretch here. So whatever is nice for you, whatever feels great. From here, we're going to come back and we're going to come into everyone's favorite posture, into our pigeon pose. And this is where we might need heaps of blocks again. So let's start with the bolster. So that's one of the higher versions. So bring the left foot forward, square the chin with a front of the mat. Find some engagement in your left toes, so pull the toes towards the knee, and then you can have the bolster right underneath the groin here as a hip support, because we will always want to make sure the hips are level. So often we tend to roll or into the left hip if the left leg is forward, but we want to press the right hip down, get the hips level, because we're probably not going to reach the mat here with our level hips. The bolster is a nice option, and then we can just come forward onto the palms, or maybe further forward into our sleeping pigeon or swan. If you think, oh, there's a little bit more room in my hip, you can replace the bolster with a blanket. Just put the blanket underneath the left hip. Again, squaring off the hips towards the mat. Making sure the right leg is nice and long. And then if we don't use a bolster underneath the hip, we can bring it into the front and maybe use it here as our little support under the forehead. And then soften through the hips. Wiggle your way in, take your time. Relax through the neck and shoulders. And like with our winged dragon, this one is a super intense hip one. So acknowledge everything that comes up, but also let it go. We want to release here today. So basically all those thoughts and emotions that come up that we're still stuck in our hips, by stretching the hips in such a really deep way, we basically, open up the hips, little doors to let out all those things that are stuck in there. And that's our opportunity to, let them wash away. Let them get carried away. So whatever you're releasing, you probably were holding for a while. So it's really time to let it go, whatever it might be. So keep breathing into the left hip. Super big stretch here. Reminder to keep softening. Don't hold any tension in the shoulders or the neck or the face. This is one of our other spots where we move our attention to. So it's either the hips or it's the neck. So by releasing the hip tension, sometimes the body tries to trick us and just moves it back into the neck, still holding on to it, but we want to let go of everything. Release the shoulders. We take 5 more breaths here. Big breath. And last 2 breaths. With your second exhalation, moving super slow coming back out of the posture, wiggle your left leg back. Observe for a second here. And then move in whatever way feels awesome for you. Mentally preparing for the other side. Yes, it has to come. We have to even it out. And then we wiggle our way into it. So bring your right leg forward. Like I said earlier, the right one is my tight one. So I'll maybe even use a block and the blanket. I'll see how much room I have to fill here underneath the hips. So yeah, that seems good. So I've got a blanket on the block. That's a good height for me. I'll make sure the toes are engaged, so they're pulling towards the right knee, just to protect the knee. Relax the shoulders, and then maybe we're gonna wriggle our way forward. Make sure we level with the hips, so drop the left hip down, lengthen through the left leg. And coming into our sleeping version. And you don't even have to use a bolster here. So if you're super flexible through your hips, feel free to just walk your chest towards the mat. That's absolutely fine here. So there's no need to use the bolster if you don't need it. But if you're quite far up, soften onto the bolster. So in yin, it's all about supporting where there's basically not enough stretchiness to reach something. Soften the shoulders, keep remembering, soften the neck. Maybe you bring back this beautiful smile of yours. And then breathe into the right hip, exhale, let it go. At any time the option to take an exhalation out through the mouth in yin classes as well, just to really support this releasing. Because sometimes an exhalation through the nose is just not enough. Sometimes you need this big sigh to really get rid of it all. And then enjoying being here, enjoying that you've got this time on your hand to really connect with your body and your breath. So to having this opportunity to release stuff. So I think we as yogis or yoga practitioners are really, really lucky to have this kind of tools. There's so many people out there that just don't know about this, or have never tried it. They maybe feel grumpy or depressed and don't know why, because they just don't know where it's coming from, why they're so sad or depressed or grumpy or full of negative energy. So everyone should just do yoga every day, all the time. Let's take 5 more breaths in our beautiful, beautiful sleeping swan. You can do it. Like I said, don't believe into everything your body is telling you. Mostly it's right, but sometimes it isn't. You can stay for those last 2 breaths. And second exhalation brings us super, 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 super slow back up. And we come off our props, snuggle them out to the side, and then we make our way back into, oh, not back, we've never been there yet, to the super new laying position on our backs. So stretch your legs long, come to lay down into this pancake shape. So bring your legs wide, fingertips by your side. That should feel awesome, like feels awesome to me here. I hope you're enjoying it as well after this big hip release, just to lay down, feel into the sensations, like I can still feel my right hip here, but in a good way. Beautiful. And then from here, just take your knees into the chest, and we just do a couple of our what's called frog kicks. So moving the knees into opposite directions, just to even out any last little kinks here. And reverse the direction of the circles. And bring the knees back together, float the feet to the ground, and just bump the hips slightly over to the right, coming into last little twist. Just because twisting is always a nice little thing to do for the spine in any yoga class basically. But also I lately discovered that it can be quite a big hip stretch as well. Like I can still feel my hip here, especially when I go into the extended version. So if you extend your leg, if you don't have an interesting wall here behind you, if you've got space for you to extend your leg, just gonna stay for 2 more breaths. And then bring the knees back up, wiggle the hips over to the left, knees over to the right, and you can bring your arms out by your side, and maybe on this side you've got a little bit more space to extend the top leg. Just enjoy this super, super awesome twist here. Awesome for all the internal organs, awesome for the spine. Like it's so important to move the spine every day. One more big breath here. And bring the top leg back in case it was extended. Wiggle the hips back in line, and we extend the legs and find our way into Shavasana. And you can, as always, use any kind of props here, because I mean you might already have all the props here anyway because we used them. So feel free to pop your bolster underneath the knees, a blanket underneath the head, or to cover yourself up. And then any kind of arm variation is fine. You can have your arms by your side or on your belly, and close your eyes. Once you're ready, snuggle the shoulders down as well, away from the ears. One more of those big inhalations and sighing exhalations. You did awesome. That was such an awesome relief. Release. So released that we already have this space to create new words. So yeah, soften here into your Shavasana. Maybe before you drift away completely, come back to your intention you might have set in the beginning of letting go of something, releasing something in particular. And then just take another big exhale and let go of anything here. So no more thinking about the intention or whatever kind of thoughts or emotions popped up during our postures. Let it all go. You're now here to completely relax and soften, enjoying your well-deserved rest. So you can stay here now for as long as you want. I recommend at least 5 to 10 minutes. But I'm going to leave you here now, bringing my palms towards my third eye and just saying thank you for joining me for this beautiful releasing yin practice. Have the most beautiful day ahead of you, whatever is left of it. And I see you next time. Namaste.